All right, good day, everyone, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live session. We've got a very interesting topic to talk about and something that's very pertinent to what's happening in the world today as well. A lot of it's around how to consolidate your sales tech stack through this recession. And we've got a bunch of very interesting questions coming up. And also for all of you who've joined in today, if in case sometimes what happens is the audio, if there's a delay or lag in the audio that's coming through, just be patient a little while because we are running live. It's running on a live LinkedIn stream as well. So just give it a couple of seconds and then it should be back to normal. But also, if you have any specific questions to ask us during the course of this LinkedIn live session, feel free to pop in your comments or your questions during your comments, or feel free to connect with us. But who is this us in the first place? Let me introduce our two speakers for today. First, we have Cynthia Handal, who's the Head of Global Sales at Simera. Hi, Cynthia, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live session.
Sandeep, excited to be here today with you and Leslie. As Sandeep said, my name is Cynthia Handal. I am the Head of Global Sales for Simera. I lead a 16 BDR team with a RevOps manager, 2 business development managers, and a sales training manager. Excited to be with you all today and share what has worked with me when I built my tech stack, what's currently not working, and what I see like the future looking like. So excited to have all of you today.
Awesome, Cynthia. And our other guest today is Leslie Venetz. Leslie is the founder of Sales Team Builder LLC. Hi, Leslie, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live session.
Thank you, Sandeep. Super excited to be here. Thanks for everybody joining us on this live. Especially jazzed to be with 2 heads of demand gen because my specialty is outbounding, but I am endlessly fascinated with blurring the lines between demand gen and lead gen. And certainly to do that especially well, we need the support of a tech stack. So excited to see what folks are keeping, what maybe they're letting go with the lens of the recession, and certainly happy to share what I'm seeing in my communities and with my clients.
Awesome. Welcome, Leslie, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live session. Let's start the first question with you. I think largely, as we've seen, at least the latter half of last year and early conversations of this year as well, everything has really shifted from literally growth at all costs to sort of more meaningful but profitable growth, especially amidst all the layoffs that are happening as well. Everyone knows budgets are tightened everywhere. So what do you think companies, or at least let's say your clientele or folks that you're talking to, what is everyone doing at the first instance, given the current economic climate?
Yeah, I would say they are a little bit more skeptical about the need to have multiple tools that serve the same purpose. So you look at maybe some of the AI copywriting tools or some of the like the data tools, where I think historically, at least the past few years, companies have had multiple tools that serve that same purpose. And now I see a lot of people asking their team that's using the tools, like, which is the one you really couldn't live without?
Yeah, that's a very powerful question, I think, and especially given a lot of the sales tech stack as well. I'll go now to Cynthia as well. Before we pivot to that question, I think one fact to bring around as well. I was reading off a recent report that said today, on an average, any sales rep, whether it's an AE, BDR, SDR, is using anywhere between 6 to 10 tools today to try and get their job done. It's a multiple of data tools, research tools, you name it, they've got something there. And it's not always affecting them. I mean, it's not always helping them in their productivity. In a lot of ways, it kind of seems stifling for them because they're like, hey, we know the reality is that salespeople don't like updating stuff on tools, and you can't give them like 6 to 10 tools. So given that larger context, a question for you, Cynthia, is, are you looking to consolidate your tech stack? You as an organization, you heading multiple BDRs, SDRs in your team. If you go about doing something like that, where would you begin? But first of all, have you decided to do something like that, and what's the path
I
you have
have,
chosen?
and just so that you know, I'm currently not adding anything more to my tech stack. I have a team, like I told you, of 16 BDRs and probably adding 4 more in the next coming month, which is going to be a 20 BDR team. And I through like test and trial and just spray and stay. I think less is more. I stick to the basics, like a good dialer. Definitely, like we've tried a couple of dialers, and the dialer that we have, we love it. A good research and prospecting tool. Again, I'm not paid by Apollo to say this, but I've tried every prospecting tool out there, and this one's the one that works for us. We don't do sequences with them. We have an emails campaign tool that we send out campaigns. Why? Because it's the tool that currently works for us. We do have an AI writing tool that helps us generate warm emails and templates for our sequences and cadences. We also have, well, of course, LinkedIn, but that's not part of our tech stack. G Suite, part of like Gmail, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and HubSpot, which is our CRM. And what I try to do is that every tool that we have added integrates with HubSpot. You don't want to have tech tools that do not integrate with your CRM. And I'm probably eliminating one tool by the beginning of March because I'm really not seeing a lot of value into it. We also have Chili Piper, which we use for scheduling, again, connected with HubSpot. So I've made sure that every tool that we use has an integration with HubSpot. So it's a lot user-friendly. Like, for example, our prospecting tool, we make sure that when you look for contacts in LinkedIn, it pushes them over directly to our HubSpot via the Apollo integration. So it's easier for BDRs instead of having to manually create them by contact, by company. We've made sure that our Gmail is integrated with HubSpot, so all of their emails are tracked, that our dialer is also integrated with HubSpot. So what we've been doing with consolidation is making sure, as I said, that everything is integrated together. So it creates a more streamlined process for the BDRs instead of having them to log in and log off 10 different tech tools or part of a tech stack. And we're eliminating one because we're not using it, and we liked it at the beginning, but it's not being as helpful as we thought it was. And it's also going to help me bring down my cost per meeting.
That's a fair point. If you have to take a sort of an objective view to this, and Leslie, feel free to add to this as well. You've of course mentioned your experience in your current company in terms of figuring out, hey, as far as I'm concerned, these are the tools that I want. I want to eliminate this and all of that, right? Two questions here. One question is the pressure for cutting down costs, where's it coming from? Is it like, is the CRO bringing this conversation? Is the CFO bringing this conversation? Or is it you're internally deciding, hey, do I really need this right now? Where is the source of, let's say, the need to cut down? That's one. Second question, I think this is a larger question, is and I think you've made a very, very valid point, right? Like one point that you said, how does one decide what to put under the chopping block, for a better word? One, you say that, hey, if it's not integrating with your CRM, for example, then, hey, why do I need that today? That's a very powerful point. And like that, are there other things that objectively a company can look at to decide, hey, this is something I must have versus something that's okay-ish to have, or it's maybe something that I can just possibly give away, right? So first question is, where is the pressure coming from? Is it the CFO organization? Is it the CEO organization? Is the CRO? Where is it generally coming from? And both can answer. Yeah, Cynthia, maybe start from you, and then Leslie, of course, can share your clients and your experience as well.
So in my case, I really don't have pressure from the CFO or CEO. It's more me, because I definitely want to bring down my cost per meeting. You know, that cost per lead, every month you're tracking how many meetings you're doing per month, and you have to actually have a cost per lead. I'm not doing bad with my cost per lead with what I started. I'm halfway there from where I started a year ago when I started in Simera, but I do want to bring it down. And that's part of consolidating what I currently have, seeing which tools are not being used by my BDRs, which tools are not that helpful, and making sure that everybody gets the most out of each tool. Like if I see somebody's not using the email campaign tool, I'm going to reach out to that person. Why are you not using it? Because we're paying for a user license for that person. As I told you, it's only going on with one of our tools, which is one of our sales management tools that we're probably axing at the end of the month. The rest of the tools, we've made sure that everybody's getting the most value out of them. That's how I would normally make decisions based on use. And part of your management role is to make sure that all of your reps are fully trained on how to use your tools properly, so that you use them to maximize your resources, especially with a recession going on, making sure that everybody gets the most out of each tool. And if you're not using them, it's time to axe them or find a cheaper solution that does the same. There's a lot of different things that can go on, actually. That's how I see it.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Cynthia. And Sandeep, something that you mentioned at the very top of our time together was that we've come out of this time of scale at all costs to the moon. And I think the conversations are shifting away from scale at all costs to how can we protect our bottom line? How can we grow margins? And Cynthia, to your comment about taking the tech stack that we have and optimizing it, making sure everything integrates with our CRM so that we are removing time that isn't sales time, because we're asking our team to do all of this admin instead. Like, that's a huge opportunity to increase the effectiveness of your BDR team, of your sales team. That we look at training folks to make the most of the tools. I think this is something that I see as particularly true when we look at things like our sales enablement platforms and we look at things like our AI writing tools. They are extraordinarily powerful pieces of the tech stack, only if people know how to use them and are utilizing them to their full potential. So I've actually been a little bit surprised that there haven't been more drastic cuts to tech stacks. I mean, I think there was like a bit of fear mongering, of course, and it was like 2023 recession out of COVID. I haven't seen the cuts be so dramatic. Maybe more stops in spending, which it sounds like, Cynthia, that's what's happening in your situation. But I have seen people double down on utilizing and training and really getting the maximum value out of their existing tech stack. And I mean, I think it's a positive to be strengthening those partnerships, both on the buyer and the seller side.
Yeah, I think one very good point, right? I think the first point is around integration, tight integrations with your CRM. The second point is adoption, ensuring that whatever products that you have in your tech stack today, if the adoption is not there at the level that you expect, either train your teams to adopt, or if the team is not adopting, then you know what to do as the next step, right? Two very powerful points. Awesome. Yeah.
Exactly.
The general thought process, I still trying to figure out the larger piece around where I think you rightly pointed out, Cynthia. I think for you, as far as you're concerned, being a sales leader, you're looking to keep down your costs of meeting, costs per lead as low as possible, because at the end of the day, you want better value for every meeting that's booked. But I'm also trying to figure out the timing is interesting because it comes at this point. Of course, in your case, maybe you're not looking at the recession as well. Maybe I'll put this question to Leslie as well. So Leslie, in your case, when you've spoken to other clients or other folks as well, where is the pressure to, like in Cynthia's case, for example, here, bring down cost of lead? Does the pressure to consolidate comes, like you mentioned, now I want to make sure that I'm growing, but I'm not growing at all costs. I'm growing with keeping my bottom line in mind. Where is the pressure coming from? Is this market pressure? Is this pressure from the finance organization within companies? Who's asking the question to actually push down and look at it differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends internally on how budgeting is done within your organization, because you even heard Cynthia's example. She's not on a spending freeze. She's about ready to grow her BDR team by 4 people. Yeah. But she really wants to make sure that every tool that they're using is the right tool to ask them to use. So I think that good leaders they have their eye on the recession. Like, they don't want to put themselves in their position where they have to lay off staff. So I think part of it is coming from good leadership and being protective of the team that we have and of the value that we're providing to the organization. Like, none of us suddenly want to be a cost center that the CFO and CRO and COO all have their eyes on. But I do have a handful of clients who, from the CRO or the founder, are getting some of that. But like, I don't know if pressure is the exact right word, but saying like, hey, we sell a piece of software. we're seeing a huge drop off in discovery meetings, in open opportunities. We're seeing extended sales cycles. So that means that if we're looking at the writing on the wall, we probably need to tighten our belt a little bit here. So I don't think that we're at the point of, at least for most organizations, that it's pressure, but I think it's awareness and preparation.
Got it. I think I like that. I think the awareness and preparation, and I think it's also a case of, like you mentioned, good leadership. Figuring out that, hey, I need to tighten this now. I need to, in Cynthia's case, get better value for my meetings, for the opportunities that I'm creating. And I think it's just being smart as a leader, right? I think it's a good point, given the fact that whatever is happening in the world. Maybe let's rewind a little bit here, to the point of, like, the earlier statement that I made. Looks like every other sales team today has 6 to 10 kind of tools, right? And this is based on company, but I mean, not every company will fall into the category, but a significant chunk of them. How did we end up here? As in, how did we end up in a place where originally we probably were just working at the back of only a CRM for all practical purposes, and then you had all of these tools and this entire sales tech stack? I was looking the other day, reviewing at the larger, this entire, you wouldn't believe it or not, you want to take a guess of how many sales tech tools are there today? I'm not kidding. I saw that number and I almost fell off my chair. And the number is just obnoxiously large. You want to just take a guess? By the way, the audience, whoever is listening, you want to guess how many sales tech tools are there today in the market? That number.
Oh, there's like millions. And that's a fun question, you know why? Because when I started working for Simera, I got the opportunity to build the team from the ground up. So it was really exciting, because you're like looking at all of these tech tools, you're picking the one that you love the most. And there's like a huge temptation that you want to get the best of the best, but you have to see what eventually works for your team. So I actually have, including my G Suite, that would be 7 tech tools to my stack. Well, no, adding Zoom, that would be 8 tech tools to my stack. I have 8 tech tools to my stack. That's my total number, 8. And if it were up to me and like my imagination, I would probably have 20. Like, I get a million DMs from SDRs and BDRs from other companies, like offering me all of these cool tools that you see that they're out there that you love, but that you know that at the end of the day, even when you try out the free trials, the value that you're going to get is not that good. So when I started my team at Simera, they only had a CRM and they had a basic dialer. So what I got in is I took that dialer out. I got a dialer that I liked, that my team had previously, that I used at my other company. And I got into like researching what was there out there on LinkedIn, what were more efficient tools for BDR teams, what were we missing, what did we have to add. And I started adding them in the first 3 months. Once I had like the basics, I started going into like, what sales management software do I need? Or what sales enablement software do I need? Do I really need this? What can be done together? I started looking into integrations. I used to take a lot of meetings to review tech stack. I stopped doing that like in November, because I was more focused on training my team and actually maximizing the resources that I had. So right now I'm at a point where I won't get anything extra. I will probably replace, like I said, or drop one of the tools that I currently have, and that's it. But when I did build the team from scratch, I took multiple demos from multiple companies just to make sure that I was making the best decision. When I picked out the prospecting tool, I tried out 4 prospecting tools, had my team try it out, and had like listen to their opinions. We don't get good numbers or good verified emails. So we made sure that the money that we were actually putting into that tool was a well-used budget, and we were not going to like repent our decision in the next following month or whatever. That's what I did.
Yeah. I want to take a guess. I'm going to guess it's 20,859.
That's so specific, but I'll give you the actual number, right? And this number could be growing. And I got this number. I'm trying to find out. It was 2022. There was an SBI growth advisory report. So there are 1,200 sales tools in 49 different categories.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah, it's just, and I saw there's a visual representation of that as well. And I'll share it on LinkedIn later on for everyone else who's joined the call today. It's just mind-boggling that there are so many.
There
Now,
are
and the
so
question,
many.
my question is also at the back of that, right? So where do Leslie, to you, where do companies make the mistake when they go about figuring out the right sales tools for them? Because this is, like Cynthia said, there's just so many. And when she was dealing with demo after conversation after conversation, and all of these are really good tools. They all do some great stuff, and they use some great technology. And as a sales rep, as a salesperson, sales leader, you're excited to see all of this stuff. But really, where do we make the mistakes today? Like, what is it that we shouldn't be doing today while picking up these tools? Leslie, you can just
Yeah.
express your thoughts there.
And I mean, I'm a solopreneur and I have 8 tools in my core tech stack, all of which I feel like I could not live without. So I get it. I think it's a really relatable challenge. So I would say a few things. It's worth repeating that they have to integrate with your CRM, and they have to integrate seamlessly with your CRM. I think there is a tendency for us to kind of have that shiny object syndrome, that we see something new and exciting and we want to test it.
Hype, like everybody's talking about a brand new tool, and you already have one that's currently doing that. Exactly.
Yeah. Or like you have something that does enough of that it's already meeting your needs. And I think that's like the adjacent point, is the want and like would like to have versus the need to have.
Or nice to have. Like, it would be nice to have this, but I really don't need it. Like,
right. And like having those really honest conversations, like, what do I really, really need? I need a data enrichment tool. I need a sales enablement platform. I need, obviously, my, CRM. Like for me, I need Canva because I have not a creative bone in my body. And without it, I don't even know what I would do. But really, thinking about, like, I feel like even some of the conversational intelligence tools are a great idea. Because a lot of people went over and got the gongs, the choruses, the Jiminy's, but then their sales managers don't coach against them. And it's like, that's like, they are good tools. Like they are good and amazing tools, but what's the point of paying for them if your sales managers aren't actually using them? So I think that, like, it's that combination of, is it a nice to have or is it a need to have? And is it a need to have that is actually being used, or is it just an add-on that becomes like kind of white noise, or maybe it puts something else onto the plates of your reps or your sales managers that feels like a distraction away from those core customer conversations we need to stay, laser focused on, particularly in the lens of a recession.
Very, very valid point. The other piece I think I want to bring into this conversation, see, one is when we look at consolidation, we talk about, hey, what tools do I have? Do I really need these tools? In our case, does it integrate? Is it being used properly by the team? Am I seeing true value coming from the tool, or is the vendor, or am I working closely with the vendor to make sure that I get the best value from the tool, for example? There's another story that's developing in the sales world, right? So the other piece is around this whole, when we say consolidation, we say this whole platform-based approach. And let's say over the last, I think even a year and a half, you've seen a lot of acquisitions happen in this space, right? For example, I have to just call out a few things. 6sense, for example, acquired Fortella, which was a third-party analytics. They acquired Slintel as well, again, a technographic-based data tool. ZoomInfo acquired Ringlead, and you had Clary acquire DealPoint and Wingman. So you're seeing some kind of, there's some kind of consolidation in the larger platform game that's happening here, right? Where some of these larger players or so-called larger players are starting to acquire other players. What's your take on that? I mean, that's visible signs of they are trying to create this unified platform kind of story where you can do everything using just one thing. So whether it's, let's say, in Clary's point, to the fact that they've got Wingman now, then you can do revenue intelligence and you can use conversational intelligence together. And I'm sure they're building a few more buckets within the larger piece. Is that a conversation that we are seeing happening? Is that something you're observing as well in your roles, Leslie and Cynthia?
Oh yeah, big time. I think the single flywheel platform is something that customers are asking for. Like they want all the tools and the functionality, but they don't necessarily want to have to go those 6 to 10 places to get it. So I do think that it is a very smart move in response to customer needs. I also think from the salesperson's perspective that it is an extraordinarily smart move, because think about how hard it is to move from a vendor that does one thing for you.
Yep.
But now what if it's a vendor that has 4 things that you used to have 4 different people for, and they do it all. So I think it's super smart. And also shout out to Shruti from Wingman, my co-author for Heels to Deals. She's an incredible human. So excited to see what they're building over there.
Awesome. Cynthia, a similar question to you, but slightly different. Right now, you are a sales leader yourself. You have a bunch of tools, and like you said, you're already consolidating and whatnot. If somebody came and told you, hey, I have a consolidated platform that can do 5 of these things in one platform, would that result in change? Would you even consider having that conversation?
So I already had that conversation. One of my tools is actually trying to take over intent data and email sequences and LinkedIn messaging. I reviewed it, but I'm currently not changing anything that's working for us. We tried it in December and it just didn't work for our reps. So it is kind of interesting, but you need to be careful not to change what's working for you, even if it's continuing to spend what you're actually spending, because at the end of the day, I'm paid to generate more leads, and I'm not gonna like mess up processes that are currently working for my BDRs. So guys, I have a hard stop. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank
Leslie,
you,
it was great meeting you. Sandeep, you too, and hope to see you guys soon. Bye.
It was such a pleasure.
Thanks, Cynthia. Pleasure having you here. Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye. All right, Leslie, we'll continue the conversation around the same point, right? The fact that this larger platform game, do you feel there's an effective change there? Like Cynthia said, she did take that conversation to start with. Of course, she wasn't probably happy with what was offered on the table, but do you feel, like you mentioned, do you feel more companies will be open to those conversations today, that maybe they have 5 or 6 tools and nowadays they have these platforms that can actually do everything? Do you see conversations ended? Would that amount to change? Because change is a big thing here. Would that give them change, or would they entertain that kind of change?
Yes. I mean, I'm seeing the conversation happen. So I know that they are willing to entertain the change. I know that they are eager to simplify their tech stack. I think the sort of barrier right now is that while you might find a single provider that checks off 4 boxes where you previously were using 4 providers, they do one thing really, really well, and the other 3 things are afterthoughts. So I think that's a big holdup. But I'm seeing some pretty amazing product updates come out of some companies. And even I think about the way that I use HubSpot, and obviously like I'm a small shop, so I can use it in ways that bigger organizations couldn't, or that I wouldn't recommend my clients use it necessarily. But I use HubSpot as my CRM, as my sequencing tool. I use it as my calendaring tool. And while every one of those features is slightly imperfect, I don't need it to be like having perfection and then having to go 3 different places to do that isn't worth, like, it just isn't worth it to me. It's easier to have a slight imperfection and use one tool instead of 3. So, I mean, that's just this one example, but I think that's the direction we're going. And it's how can those companies that are trying to become that flywheel product, like how can they get 90% of the way there with all of those features instead of having one standout feature and then some afterthought features?
No, I think that's a very powerful statement. I think that's where everyone's heading, right? The fact that you'll find a lot more companies trying to do that as well be really good. And like you mentioned, it really depends on what's happening. And in your case, you're a solopreneur. So for your case, the current HubSpot use case works really well. May not necessarily work for companies slightly bigger as well. So I think, like you said, it totally depends. But I think there's a lot more play. And I think that was my next question, is the fact that where do you think all of this is heading, right? The fact that we are in the mode of consolidation. Does that mean that are we not okay? So if somebody's got 4 tools in one, we entertain that conversation. We are having that conversation. Does it shut the door on companies coming up with completely new, innovative products on the other hand, or is it? Are we saying it's the time now and whatnot? So is there something else happening there, do we feel?
I absolutely don't think that the door is shut on category creation. I think quite the opposite, right? Like these sort of recessionary times breed innovation because people have to do more with less. They have to be creative in their thinking. So I would put my bet on the opposite, that we are more likely to see categories created versus no categories created. And what I'm seeing in my communities and in my client base is less of the consolidation of tech stack where people are firing their vendors and more they are getting rid of bloat. So I would say the number one place I'm seeing it is that folks have like 2 or 3 data enrichment tools. And now they're like, ooh, okay, do we really need 3? Or can we get 90% of the way there with one? And people are really indexing for tools that save their FTEs time. So I think anything that is an add-on that requires extra effort, requires extra admin, requires extra like resource of the human FTEs and seats, those are going to be the ones first on the cutting board. And, we might see that spend is repurposed to doubling down with existing vendors that are checking multiple boxes or that are really saving the reps time or being repurposed to additional FTE.
Awesome. That's a very good point. Before we move on to I think we're almost there towards the end, but I'm just checking if there are any questions. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to drop it on the comments. We'll take it now. Or if you feel like, hey, you want to reach us out on our LinkedIn profiles, feel free to connect with either of us and reach us and ask us those questions as well at that point. But just in the larger summary, Leslie. So I think few points that we made. I'm just trying to summarize largely what we spoke about, right? Like how are companies trying to consolidate? What's probably the best approach? One point we clearly called out is the fact that you need to find tools that can integrate with your base CRM, because even if in fact, the image I was talking to you about these 1,200 odd sales tech tools, all of them are actually based off the CRM. So you got the CRM at the center, and then you've got a bunch of things out there. So I think like the both of you mentioned, integrating with your CRM becomes paramount to whatever you're doing. I think the other point very strongly both of you put forward is the product adoption piece. The fact that if people are not using the product as much as they should be using, either you train your staff to get them there, or maybe the product is not there yet it's not friendly enough for the team to be using, and you let go. The third point, I think you brought it up now, is the fact that why do we have 3 of something that's doing exactly the same thing? Data is the best example to give. I know companies have 3 or 4 data platforms. You don't even need that much. Can you do it all in one? Can you do the majority in one? And like you said, you don't always need super perfection there. Can you get major of that stuff in one place? I think 3 core points. Are we missing something else, Leslie, in terms of what should companies be? I think the other point also we spoke about is in terms of consider companies that have a platform-based solution that could replace a single point solution that you might already have, which makes everything seamless for you. So I think 4. Anything else are we missing in the larger piece?
No, I mean, I think it boils down to, Sandeep, that nice to have versus need to have. And today, need to have tech either needs to save your sales team time, or it needs to help them create more meaningful connections with your prospects and customers. And if the tech isn't doing one of those 2 things, then it becomes a nice to have, and then it is on that potential chopping block.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest point, right? If it's not delivering value, the fact that you got it for something, whether it's automating tasks or helping book meetings, and if it's not giving you that, then why is it even there? Right?
Yep.
I think that's
I
think it should start from there. Start from there and then do the other things, really. But that's awesome. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you for joining us today. And I thank all of you who have joined us for the session as well. This will, of course, be available on our LinkedIn page for some time as well for those listening to it later on in the day or tomorrow early morning, the APAC zone. If you want to listen to it as well, you can listen. And feel free to connect with Leslie or myself on LinkedIn. We're there. We're pretty active as well. It was a pleasure talking to you, Leslie, and all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody that joined us today. I'll see you on LinkedIn.